Okay, last class. So at the end of the class, we don't prostrate. We never do at the last class, just to keep it going. So remind me if I stand up to do so. So let's do the prayers in English. Here is the great earth, filled with the smell of incense, covered with a blanket of flowers, the great mountain, the 4 continents, wearing a jewel of the sun and moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratnam Manulakam Nirtiyam. I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do in giving and the rest, may I reach Buddha for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do in giving and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do in giving and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. In my Tibetan class, we've been working on translating these verses, so I bring this little stack with me, and then we work on it. And it's very interesting, very different. And then the last class, he decided that he's doing now a new approach, which he read somewhere, or maybe he took a course or something on being a teacher, and now he decided that it's a good idea to just throw me in the pool and just let me drown. Well, I'll survive, right? So that's his new approach. So basically, it'll be very uncomfortable in the beginning, and the idea is that I do more talking. Normally he talks a lot, I'm just quiet the whole class, and just only when he asks me something. So now he wants me to explain everything, like for instance these verses, how the whole sentence is composed and how this particle works with that. And it's very uncomfortable because I don't understand it at all, right? So, and that's his whole strategy of making me very uncomfortable, and then over time I won't be so uncomfortable anymore. I'll just figure it out, right? Rather than, because he's guided me so far, you know, so I do have some stuff that, you know, he taught me by holding my hand, but now he's like, here, just go in the pool and just see how you make out, type of thing. So we've been working on that. I hadn't felt like that for a long time in my class, that I couldn't wait for it to be over. For like 40 minutes in, I'm like, oh God, another 20 minutes, I don't know. But it's good. It's, you know, that's a good teacher. One that pushes you, one that keeps you uncomfortable, right? Because when you are comfortable, how much do you really learn? Not as much.
Because your neurons actually are relaxed and they can actually function.
I think you don't. I mean, of course you do. You do learn a lot, but I do see benefit in a teacher pushing you and taking you to places where you would not have taken yourself, right? And I would not have taken myself here. You know, I could have educated myself through internet or books up to a certain point, but what he's doing with me now, I don't think I could make it far, because if it was up to me, I would stay comfortable. I wouldn't push myself so hard. So I do feel you need a teacher, someone that knows what you need and what you can handle, and adjust along the way. Some things he sees I can absolutely not do. So if I have to do all the talking, I can't say anything because I don't know it, right? So then he needs to adjust a little bit and help me to get me going again. But it's kind of cool.
And you guys have a relationship, like a trusting relationship already.
Mm-hmm. We do.
And I think that's the difference. Because I think if there's trust in the foundation, then your neurons probably aren't as activated, or your nervous system isn't as activated. I don't know. It's like a parent, right?
Yeah. Anyways, it's kind of cool. All right, so last class. This class, it's been a pretty crazy week or two. Like I find a lot of suffering. This little girl who's here was in the hospital for a few days this week. Two people that I know quite well, their family members died this week. My aunt had a heart attack a week ago. Lots of, and one baby born, that also. But lots of pain, lots of suffering, lots of...
I had a student who just lost her baby 7.5 months. And just one day she had the ultrasound, a day and a half later it was dead. So she's been coming for healings with me.
Wow. Yeah, that's hard. That's really hard. First baby, ugh. Yeah, that is very hard. When I had my first child, I was in hospital. Beside me was a lady who had lost her first baby also around that time at 7 months. And she was just having her next baby after that. And so I got to hear their joy, which was quite amazing because she was so scared to be pregnant again after a loss like that. And they didn't try, but she got pregnant, and then the baby did come. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard. So yeah, it's been a weird couple weeks. So let's start the class. Say Jaje Topa. Jaje means the way things work, and Topa means correct. So the correct way of things working. And then say Chunam Tong Kyang. Chu means all existing things. And Nam is plural, so basically it means all existing things. Tong means empty. And Kyang means even though. So what that means is even though things are empty, they still work. Okay? Because things are empty, they work. And that is the belief of the highest school in Buddhism. So today we'll talk about, we've been talking about the cup and the emptiness of a cup, and we quite easily could understand that, right? We have this thing, and we impute cup onto it, but the emptiness is that this is not a cup from its own side, right? When someone would walk in here like a dog, they wouldn't say, "This is a cup, I'm going to drink with it." Okay, so that's quite clear. But today we'll talk more about the emptiness of something that is actually working. So, like the way things interact, because that also has its emptiness, and that might be trickier to understand. And there's different schools in Buddhism, and they have different views on that. So what does it mean, like, for instance, for medicine to be empty as far as its function goes, right? Like, medicine in and of itself cannot cure you. And, how can you prove that? Well, I can prove that quite easily to myself when I think of having a headache or something and I take an aspirin. Sometimes the aspirin works. Sometimes it doesn't work. So it's not the aspirin, right? So the medicine cannot do anything from its own side. What we need is we need to have the karmic projection of it to be working. We need to have virtue in order for it to work. If you don't have it in place, then you can take 5 aspirins, but it will not make your headache go away if you do not have the virtue in place. If you do have the virtue in place, your headache might even go away before you even start to take the aspirin, or maybe you just need one. So it's a projection too.
I have a question regarding migraines. If someone suffers from severe migraines daily, obviously that's karmatic, and medication helps somewhat, and diet. But migraines are caused from heavy pain, I guess, the head, the mind.
It's a karmic result. So what causes you pain is you having caused other people pain. So the only way to really cure a migraine is to help other people that have pain of some sort. If you have a migraine and you happen to know that your neighbor also has a migraine, you should make sure they're okay. You should make sure that they have enough aspirins, that they have, I don't know what you do for migraines, have a warm cloth or a cold cloth or whatever it is that you do to care for somebody. Make sure they have enough food, make sure they're as comfortable, care for them. And that will be the thing that will charge up your aspirin. So then when you take an aspirin the next time you have a migraine, oh, it works, and now your headache is gone, or maybe you don't even get the migraine anymore. So that's what we'll be talking about today. Like, that is opposite to what we do, most people do. But the only way you can have pain or experience pain is because you've hurt other people. And by taking responsibility in that, knowing that, the best thing you can do is be moral, be kind, and help other people. And you can target specific karmas, and you can dedicate it by It's very hard when you're in
right
it.
in the thick of a migraine.
Yeah.
I have a fascinating story just regarding that. I have a very, very dear friend who's actually, in this life, she's the most giving person you'll ever meet.
Mhm.
And she's extremely, extremely financially successful. Like everything she touches turns to gold. But she suffers from these migraines that are so acute and so heavy that she actually had to retire from this massive position that she had.
Mhm.
And we went out for dinner. She brought my girlfriend and I for dinner the other day, and this woman came up to us and asked. She said about cutting hair and donating this hair for children for making wigs, and I'm listening to all of this, but I didn't have the financial means to give her money. Rhonda, this pulled out a $20 bill, didn't even think twice about it. She goes, "Oh, here you go." And I just was watching all this go on. And then at dinner, I said to her, I mentioned to her, I said that this, you may not know this, but this giving that you gave, this little bit for you that you gave to this woman to help these children with cancer have hair is just planting an abundance of seeds for you.
Mhm.
Like it's just, and she says she doesn't even think about it, but she does it all the time without even thinking about it. And I just let her know, wow, that was really, like I was just watching that, and that was for me to observe that, because, I would love to be more like that. Just, oh, take this $100 bill, or,
Well,
so,
that is the only way
yeah.
how you can feel like you have enough money to give, right? By giving. Yeah. So, okay. So everything is a projection. So taking the medicine, having it work, or having it not work, all of it is a projection, right? Dependent on your karma. And karma works on a level that is deeper than your consciousness. And you're always projecting your own consciousness. You're projecting your own mind even after death. And that's tricky, Most people get hung up on the same thing, that something must be self-existent in our world, especially when you're in it. Like Yasmin says, when you're in that migraine, the last thing you want to do is start to try to think about where's this migraine coming from, because you're just overthrown by pain and whatever other strong emotions might come up, right? And we want it to be self-existent. We want to blame the migraine. We want to blame, I don't know, the food that you ate or whatever it is, right, that we think caused it. Not enough water drinking, whatever. But we want something to be the cause of it. And that's not the way it works. And so there's all these different schools of Buddhism, and in the highest school, in the lower schools, they will say that something is real, something is out there. And the higher you go, they'll say, no, even that what you think is out there is also a projection. And now I'm talking about working things, not just a cup, but say the sun rising. The sun, seeing the sun come up, that is a projection. And in the lower schools, they don't really buy that so much. But in the higher school, they say, yeah, the sun is not moving. It's your projection that's changing. And that can be a hard thing to grasp, right? Like, how is that even possible? How can all of us experience the sun coming up and seeing the sunshine, especially on these sunny days? How can that be your projection? How can it be your projection that it's moving and not actually the sun isn't moving? It's your projection that's shifting. That's pretty crazy, right? That's a pretty crazy statement. And that's something that takes a lot of contemplation and meditation. How is that even possible? Like right now, we're having 3 dogs at our house. I had 4 dogs at my house yesterday. 5 kids and 4 dogs. It was a gong show. Oh my god. Anyway, so there's a dog barking. One moment he's barking, the next moment he's not barking. Okay, so it feels like, it looks like the dog is barking. I say quiet. The dog stops barking. But that's not how it works. My projection shifted from a barking dog to a non-barking dog. I could have said, be quiet 15 times and he could not have listened, or he could have listened instantly, but it didn't have nothing to do with that. It had to do with my projection shifting. So the dog's not out there barking. My projection is a dog barking, a dog not barking.
Do they have an answer to why everyone perceives a sunrise?
Yeah, sure. It's you can see it as, well, for one, I think it's important to state that not everybody sees the sunrise. Not everybody sees the sun, right? There's people that don't have that virtue. Maybe they're sick in the hospital and they have to be in a dark room and they don't see the sun for days. So then they're not in the same. But generally, yes, we can say we have a collective karma to live in a world where the sun comes up. Now, the emptiness of the sun is that it's different for all of us. When the sun comes out, my daughter's like, too hot, while I'm like, oh, I'm going to sit on the back porch and soak up some sun. And she's like, nah, no thanks, So we all, one person gets a sunburn in 5 minutes, the next person can, be in the sun like for days on end. So we do have all our individual karma, all our projections that are experiencing the sunrise or the sun shining all in a different way. But we do have this collective karma of having a sun. However we experience that sun is up to your unique karma. But yeah, somehow we have done similar things to live in the world.
Yeah, I get that. That makes complete
sense. Right?
Yeah. That's what I was saying.
So yeah, that's your projection too. So the sun is not out there either. And the classic proof for emptiness is when you talk about the parts. And we did that a little bit, and we had Yasmin as an example, right? We were looking for Yasmin in her parts. Remember that? We said, is Yasmin in her foot or something like that, we said. And we couldn't find Yasmin in her parts. The only way we could find Yasmin was when we label all of these parts like as a whole and then label as Yasmin. But in one of each of her parts, we cannot find it. So that's kind of the classic proof of emptiness. You cannot find a cup in the parts.
I had a very interesting experience this week. I did a healing on a 15-year-old boy with cerebral palsy, and when he was still on the table and he was lying down, and I said to him, because it was his first treatment with me, and I said to him, "And how are you feeling?" And he just looked at me and he said, these are right. I feel empty. I'm a new person. Right? So that feeling of that old projection, I guess, that like he doesn't understand. He wouldn't, right? He knows anything about this, but that must have been what he's experiencing. That old projection is dead. This is I went through this emptiness, and now there's a new projection.
So yeah, and this new projection, is a changing thing. So it's not guaranteed that he will feel like that in another 5 minutes, right? But somehow he has the karma to be with you. You give him exactly what he needs. He has this virtue that pops that then makes him experience his self as, wow, I feel like brand new, I feel amazing, right? So that's very beautiful. So, then the mistake that we can make is that it was you who did it, right? No, but I'm saying, when we go to a doctor, the doctor gives us some kind of treatment, we think, oh, the doctor fixed me, the doctor did it. Instead of thinking, no, actually, it was the virtue that I had in place that popped. And, if he had different karma in place, if he had some negative karma pop in that moment, he could have, said to you, you know what, I never want to see you again because you make me feel worse. If he had different karma going off. Now, fortunately, he has this karma going off, and maybe next week or whenever he comes to you, it will be similar and the same, and you can help him. Somehow he would have that virtue to see you as someone that can really help him. And I hope that's the case, and that's wonderful if you can play a role, and I know you play a role in lots of people's lives in that way. So that's really beautiful. But in our daily lives, that's the mistake we make. We think, we go to work, we get paid. Money comes from work, investment strategies is, if I invest in this, then I'll become rich, or, and if it's actually true, somehow you do get money from the investment strategy. We think it actually came from the investment strategy, rather than thinking about the real cause. Like, money could never come from work. Money could never come from investing your money in a certain way. Sure, it might be the delivery system that makes it seem like I'm going to work and putting in 40 hours and I get a paycheck. But it's not guaranteed, Actually, in this class, when it was taught to me, my teacher told me, he worked on this job and he never got paid for it. So you're not guaranteed that you get your paycheck. And then if you do get your paycheck, sometimes you spend it all on the first day of the month. Sometimes there's almost everything left at the end of the month. So, how does it really work? And, the answer is what Nina's story was like. Give. That's how you get money. If you are being generous, you don't even have to work. I'm not saying you shouldn't work, because the world needs you to be out there and work. Because what is work then, Work then is just serving people, being in the world, helping you to plant all these great seeds of virtue, because you're helping people heal. Oh, what does that plant for you? You're planting your own healing. You're assisting children. Well, what's that going to do? That's going to help people support you in your life, that's how it works. So that's what you're doing at work. You're serving people, you're helping people. And then by giving your time and by living in a generous way, you will get everything that you need, People at work that maybe normally get their normal paycheck and then they get hurt on the job, and then they're at home. Somehow they'll still get money from somewhere to pay for their food or their housing, right? So did the money come from the job? Not necessarily. But we make that mistake all the time. We think, we need to work. We're in this society that, you gotta work. You gotta climb up on the corporate ladder or whatever. And that's not where money comes from. It's not where happiness comes from. That's for sure. But helping other people, that is serious. Planting seeds for your own happiness. Yeah. Yeah, so the lower schools, they can't really quite buy that. They feel that there should be something out there. And the highest school says no, nothing's out there. It's all just a shift in your projection. And most of the suffering in the world, maybe all of the suffering, is caused by people expecting a certain result from a cause. And when it doesn't come, they get upset. And that causes depression, disappointment, confusion, because they don't understand the real cause for things. Like we can stick with the example of work and money. When you work and you don't get your paycheck, we get angry. We get defensive. We feel we have to protect this thing that we think is me that's been done wrong, Right now, people that I'm close with, they are redesigning the house, and they have their daughter do some of the designing for it, and they're not paying her, or she's just doing it to help them. But then they are working, they have certain expectations, and then the daughter has different ideas, and it just turned into this big fight. But all you can see what's happening is they each have their expectations, The daughter puts in all her work. She expects some credit. She expects a thank you. She expects her ideas to be implemented. And the parents expect, this is my budget and whatever, They have their expectations, and it's not working together. And it's just one big suffering bunch, It's horrible to watch. But it's all because it's steeped in misperceptions. They are all blaming each other. They're all angry with each other, and all because they have certain expectations. And when you can apply these ideas, you wouldn't even have, if you would understand this, you wouldn't even go near thinking thoughts like that, because you would know that when someone's designing your house and it feels like, okay, this is not quite what I want, you know where it's coming from. You know that or if you're the person who's designing the house, spending your time on it, you know that it's not being appreciated because you have not appreciated other people in the past. You've not been generous with your money, or whatever it is. You just notice things, and then you don't have to worry about it. You just know, okay, all I have to do here is just plant some different seeds in the soil and not keep these guys going. And that's what they're doing right now. They're all they're keeping it going, and they're creating more of that for all of their futures. And it's sad to watch, because there's a lot of pain and a lot of anger, and they're just setting themselves up for more of that. Rather than taking responsibility for how you feel and not blame it on somebody else, right? And let go of some of the expectations. You cannot always get what you want, and that's okay. If you don't have the karma in place, you don't get what you want. So if you want to get what you want, you have to put different karmas in place. So it's simple. It's so simple, but yet it's so hard for some reason.
There's always that time gap, right?
There's a time gap,
You
yeah.
might be doing all these really good virtuous things, but it may not materialize for a while.
For a long time, yeah. And the more wisdom you have, the quicker it will ripen. But if you don't have that wisdom, yeah, it can take 100 years, And you hear these people, I'm always nice and not ever doing anything wrong. Yet they always get, they always get everything. They get to go on holidays, right? And
I have a kind of a neat story just the other day. I was telling my friend about an incident I had, having to pay it forward, and she found this story really, and she took it and really embraced it. And then the next day we spoke, and I'm talking to her, and she said she's with her mother and her father, and they're on the drive, and her dad's a little spacey. He went to Starbucks to buy a coffee, and they went into a different shop, and they bought 3 coffees, but he bought himself a coffee. So she's like, my dad did it again. I have 2 coffees in my hand, and he bought one for himself. She says, I'm going to pay it forward. I'm going to do what you do, Nina. I'm going to pay it forward.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to find the first person on the street that I think deserves it and give it to that person. I'm going, you go, girl. You go, girl. And I say, make sure that person is interesting and you find something fascinating about them that you're not sure of, and you're not sure you quite like that quality. And then you make sure you give it to that person.
That's nice. And it must have made her very good, right?
Yeah.
It's fun to live like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't hear the results.
It's much more fun to live in more of an open way like that rather than only being concerned about yourself. It doesn't feel so good. It'll make you much happier when you live like that. So the apparent causation that's going on in the world doesn't work. And that's the big problem of suffering. You don't understand the causes for success or obtaining money or friendship or happiness or anything. And every day we get up and we go and try different things, and they just don't work. They don't cause what we want. And sometimes it appears that they work, but it's not connected, right? So when I lie and I get $500 because of my lie, it appears that my lie brought me the $500. But in fact, it's not true. The lie is going to cause me being lied to, and the $500 that I just got was because I've been generous in the past. So you see, it's not connected. But we think it's connected. We think, okay, I do a lie, that results in money, because that's what's happening right in front of me. But that's not how it works. Okay? So lie will be cause for suffering. Getting money is a result from me being generous before.
So it's dissected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So cause and result, we think that's how it works, but it doesn't work. Okay? We think it works like that because that's how it looks to us. It looks like I go to work, I get money, but it doesn't work like that. So, like I said, there's different ideas in different schools about all of this. And so we're just going to a bit of a lower school right now, and we're talking about deceptive reality. So, what does that mean, deceptive?
Deceptive reality is when you see something one way, but it's actually not true.
Exactly. So just what I was explaining. So it looks one way, but the way it really is doesn't correspond. It's not the same.
It's like a crime scene. So an incident happens, a police officer asks 6 people what happened, and you'll get different answers from all 6 people.
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah, everyone has a different perception, right? So that's called Kunzop. So say Kunzop. So that means deceptive reality. So we live in a deceptive reality where it looks like, hey, I lie, it gets me $500. Okay? Deceptive reality. So when the dog barks, it looks like they stop barking because of, I said, quiet, but that's not why. It's a shift in the projection, right? So the lower school says there's 2 kinds of deceptive reality, and the first one's called Yangdak Pei Kunzop. Yangdak Pei Kunzop. So that is young duck, Pe Kunsup is right or the correct deceptive reality. And then the other one would be the incorrect or the wrong deceptive reality. And that one is called Lokpe Kunsup.
Can I ask you a question? Why do you call it a shift in perception from barking to no barking?
Because I am now projecting a non-barking dog. Yeah, but it wasn't because of anything to do with the dog. It had to do with my karma. I just shifted in that moment, so now I perceive him as a non-barking dog.
I guess it would be almost the same as if I'm in a classroom and the kids are really loud and noisy and it's very uncomfortable for others to walk in and they're like, oh my gosh, how can you be in this room? It's so loud and noisy. And I'm looking and I'm thinking, it is.
Right.
I don't hear anything.
Yeah.
It's normal for me. It doesn't. So that's.
You have a different perception in that moment. Yeah, and everybody will have it, and sometimes, I'm just thinking of Miss Bayen for a second, who had always Nina used to work in this class where my daughter was in, so she would help teach her, and that was a loud class, and some days Miss Bayen could handle the loud noises very well. And other days she would scream from the top of her lungs, and she just wanted it to stop, right? So some days her karma is such a way that forces her to perceive the class as okay, I can do this, and other days it's like no, cannot. So the two deceptive realities that these lower schools are saying. They're giving the example of a lake. So you say you're driving along this road and there's a lake. And is there a lake? Yes. Is it what it seems? Yes, it's a lake. Okay. That's what they say. So that's correct. And then the incorrect one would be you drive along a road and you see a mirage. Now, does the mirage exist? Yes. Is it what it seems? No. So a lake can do what it seems to do, but a mirage cannot. A lake is what it seems to be, a mirage is not. So then the higher school says, no. Both of them are actually completely an illusion. After you see emptiness directly, you cannot buy into either anymore. So basically the lower schools, they believe in some kind of a self-existent lake out there. And the higher schools don't. They say no, even the lake or even the lake is your karmic perception in that moment. It's not really out there.
So can I just if we take the lake and what you just said back to the sunrise.
Yeah.
So the lower schools say the sun is there.
Yeah.
And the higher school says we have a mutual karmic something that exists because we're all here, all karmically on this earth that so-called has the sun. So is that the kind of the same
Yeah, it's
thing?
similar. So basically, the lower schools would say there is a sun out there. However we perceive it, that's our unique karma. So, but there is something out there that we project onto, saying, okay, the sun is either pleasant or it's not. But the sun is
there.
Yeah.
So
Like that. So in the same way here, they want something to be out there, and because it's just too hard to not have anything out there. And actually thinking like that can bring you very far. It can actually take you to see emptiness directly. So it's not an entirely wrong view. It's just not complete. So if it's too much to think like nothing is out there, it's all just a shift in my projection. It's all, and it's not like it's not real. I mean, we've talked about that before. Because it's empty, it works. And it works because if I go stand on Main Street right now, my illusion will work. Like it functions, right? I will get hit, most likely. I can touch things. Like it's not that nothing exists. Obviously, I can drink tea, like it's happening, but it's just happening in a different way than I thought it did. Okay. So the highest school, they say nothing is what it seems to be. And
is it kind of like clouds? So if I look at clouds, I see it almost looks, I don't know, touchable, or just like this puffy thing that you could just reach and just, like you can roll in it. But actually, it's just an illusion, because if I was to go there, there's nothing. It's empty space. But yet, in the same breath, those clouds bring rain and thunder and all sorts of things.
You could say that. I just want to make it very clear that it's not like nothing exists. Things truly exist, and just in a different way than we think they do. So what it all comes down to, really, is to keep your morality. That is the big key here. When you can live a moral life, then that's the only cause of sweet things in your life. Right? So it has nothing to do with how intelligent you are. There's very smart people that are in businesses or something, and they lose everything. Or they're very dumb people, or very bad singers or whatever, that are super famous and have more money than we know. So it has nothing to do with intelligence. It all has to do with whatever karma you had in store. So I was just saying, Serena, what it comes down to is your morality. Do you keep your morality? And that's how you produce sweet things in your life, beautiful experiences. Right? And it has nothing to do with how smart you are. And some people have the kind of karma that everything they set out to do just works so perfectly fine for them. And then there's people that try so hard and everything just goes wrong for them. And sometimes, we can think that maybe those people are the lucky ones, because the people that everything goes well for, they'll need to crash down. They'll need to crash at some point. And the people that are trying really hard to be a good person, they can only go up, from there. So the whole point is nothing works the way you think it does. And that because they're projections, they work. And that's what you're flirting with here, is to see how miracles can work. This is why miracles are possible. This is how they can work. I mean, someone can actually walk into Serena's office, and Serena does her thing, whatever she does with them, and they can walk out like healed completely. Like, it can happen like that. And it's just an amazing karma popping in that moment. I grew up in a church where we had it was a Pentecostal church, so people would come to the front, they wanted to be prayed with, and then the pastor would hold his hand on them, and they would fall over. They would always fall on the floor, and he would go, "Holy Ghost," and they would fall, and then they would stand up, and then they were healed. Seriously, like I've seen it a million times. Like that's how I grew up for years, and I did not particularly like going to church, but that part was always like, I mean, how can you not love that? You know, people that come in with AIDS or they come in a wheelchair, and it's crazy.
So prayer, in a sense, then, is how you're explaining it. Prayer, I believe in. So prayer is all these other people's morality and karma coming together to create a new moment. Is that kind of what
I
you're
think
saying?
I mean, however anybody's experiencing that moment will fully depend on what they have in store, right? So I would sit there in this church and have this amazing experience. My brothers sit beside me. They want to go home. They hate it, right? So people would be in tears, loving it. Other people wouldn't care for it. So yeah, everybody would have their own experience. But yeah, there's some virtue that for some reason in that moment is brought to pop. And you know why it is, I cannot tell you, you know, because karma is so deeply hidden, it's even harder to understand than emptiness, actually. And you will not understand it until you are a Buddha and you can truly see that. Why is it that, you know, a few hundred people come to this church? And, you know, my mom tells me stories all the time. Like, they would sit in church and all of a sudden everybody is covered in gold. Like, people have golden fillings in their mouths that they've never had before. My mom opens her Bible, there's golden flakes inside, and it's like, you know, I mean, I can tell this, and I know some people would be skeptical. Like, some friends of my husband, they would say, whatever, it's all just planted or whatever, right? But for me, having seen these things firsthand, to me it's real. To other people it wouldn't be real. That's fine. That's just a different perception, right? But, you know, why is it that I can see this? I don't know, you know? Why is it that all these people have this experience of people healing or being covered in gold? I don't know. But for some reason, it pops in that moment. Yeah, as a collective thing.
Yeah, because they've done this all over the world, right? They've done prayer circles all over the world to prevent a war or do whatever, and it's actually worked.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying is I guess that collective karma popped at that moment.
It popped at this moment, but they can also do the same thing and nothing happens, you know? They can also pray as hard as they want and then the war's still happening, you know? That's happened too. So why is it that in one moment is prayer, you know, why is it that in this one moment the virtue does come through and it pops and in the other moment it doesn't?
Could it be
Everybody's individual karma, who knows? But it's so deeply hidden that we cannot know the answer to that. That is something that, you know, only a highly, highly realized being can know. So we can think about it, we can, you know, contemplate it, that's fine. But I don't think anybody can understand it until they've truly realized, you know, themselves. But it's definitely interesting. Okay, so let me just see. So again, like this working thing is hard for this lower school to understand. So they would agree that, you know, putting a seed in the earth and then you have a tree. The seed is empty of self-nature, the tree is empty of self-nature, fine. But the process of the seed turning into the tree, they find that hard to see that as illusory as well, you know. And it is hard.
Could it be the purity of the karma in that moment? The karma in that moment?
What?
Could it be the purity of the karmic moment? Like the purity of the seed in the moment? How pure that karmic seed is?
Whose seed? Of of the person? Of the tree?
The person or the tree or whatever it is. How even when a collective group of people pray together, if there's maybe one who's not doing it from a pure karmic I don't know if I'm wording it correctly, how pure it is, how genuine it is, how
So what their
compassionate
intention
it
is.
what the intention is.
Well, again, like the intention in that moment has nothing to do with what they're experiencing. So it's from before, right? If you because there's a time gap, so I can have a very, very pure motivation in a moment. It doesn't mean I get the result right away what I'm looking for, right? That result can come a week or 100 years later, depending on how much wisdom I got going.
Because there is no cause or result.
Not out there, no. So cause and result is also a projection, according to the highest school. So the lower school says, we can't go there, that's too crazy, yeah. And that's fine. So, that's why the Buddha taught, for those of you who did the Karma course, in the Mind Only school, he taught, so whenever you do a deed, say I'm giving something to Serena, now I'm planting a seed, which they call bakchak. I'm planting this seed, and it's stored in my storehouse consciousness, which they call the kunchi, right? And you can see it maybe as a balloon or something. So I'm doing something nice for Serena. Plop. The seed is now in my consciousness that carries with me everywhere I go, records everything, puts seeds in like all the time, and then when it's time, this will then flower into this beautiful result of, oh, Turnjit's giving something beautiful to me, or whatever, right? So this is how this mind-only school thinks. So this was taught by Lord Buddha, and it's taught for people that they can handle this. This makes sense. I can understand this. In the higher schools, they say, forget about that. There's no such thing as a balloon hanging above your head. No, it doesn't work like that. But the Buddha taught it to the lower schools, and he said, yeah, I taught it to help you understand. And now later on he'll say, no, there's actually not such a thing. That's okay. You teach people where they're at, and it functions, right? It helps them. And why not? Because it would still allow me to do nice things for Serena, whether I believe in this balloon or not. If I believe in this balloon, it will help me to be a moral person. So it's a good teaching. It functions, and it could get me very far. So that's fine. So, but in the higher schools, that's no such thing. Because now we're saying there's this self-existent balloon, and the high school says no, there's no such thing. Everything is a projection. There's no self-existent balloon out there.
Can I ask a question? Everything's a projection. So right now I see you, everybody here, that's part of my projection.
Mm-hmm.
So the teachings are embedded in my perception.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm doing something nice to you, I'm really just doing something nice to a part of my perception. Or doing something mean to a part of my perception. Yeah, perception,
Yeah,
projection,
you are.
whatever it is.
You are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And-
how has the Buddha embedded that in my perception?
Say that again.
Everything's a projection
Mm-hmm.
or a perception, whatever. But somehow the teachings are embedded in it too.
Yeah, the fact that you can perceive this as a teaching, the fact that you think it's interesting, the fact that you show up here all the time, and somehow you have this karmic projection to perceive that, right? Which is your own work. It's because your virtue, because of your good deeds, that you can experience this as something helpful. Does that make sense? No.
None of it makes sense to me.
No.
It's you're saying it's like a movie, so the movie's always changing.
Yeah, so it's a blank screen out there, and you are the projector you are creating everything you see, including, sitting here hearing this stuff. I mean, you could sit here and think, oh God, when will she ever stop talking, right? Or you can think, yeah, I'm going to come next time again,
So it's kind of like, this is my movie.
Yeah.
Why am I getting upset over stuff?
That's
It's my movie.
Yeah, and that's why they say you laugh when you become a Buddha. Because it's so ridiculous, it doesn't make any sense. Why are we so attached to this thing that feels like, yeah, I have every right to be upset right now because, they did something to me. But yeah, actually they're a part of your movie, that you are the director of your own movie, right? So why would you be upset? It doesn't make any sense. If you understand this stuff, you wouldn't be upset. But it's okay to be upset because you still have those seeds to be upset. But maybe at some point you can step back from that and just watch yourself get upset and just laugh about it,
There's a saying that goes, the beautiful thing is when you can step back and laugh at the absurdity of your own thoughts. I like that saying.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, it is, yeah, sometimes, I just scratch my head and I think, it's just ridiculous, What am I doing? Why does this upset me? Like, what's the point? Yeah, but you're forced to feel it that way, and that's okay. So the more wisdom you can throw at any of those moments, the less and less of those moments you will have. The more wisdom you have, the less you fall for all those thoughts that are just creating suffering. Right? So less and less, and you'll be happier and happier because you're no longer wasting your time on all those stories that you believe that are in your mind. Okay, so I think we should have some cookies. Please help yourself.
Do I make the check out?
To me.
Okay. Sure, there is.
So that is really, the main thing is that we still have that ignorance. So I'll say one more thing, and then we'll meditate for a couple minutes.
Is it 2 C's? MC-L.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you need to say it right on.
She wants to make sure my room's right on the floor.
I'm not supposed to have tea today.
So basically, we are done the class.
Oh,
Of course. Mm.
Who's got water?
Yeah, I just have water. I can't offer it.
Obviously, maybe I'm not supposed to. It's the Townsends and they're making me go to the bathroom every 2 minutes. Maybe there's a reason for all of that.
So, key is morality. Be kind. Be nice to other people. Be helpful.
Mariska,
Mm-hmm.
morality. Of course, I know the meaning of morality. I mean, I define it as our moral, our being, the way we.
The six
but
perfections. The six perfections.
Thank you. Killing, stealing.
No,
Okay.
but yeah, actually,
Yeah.
those are the 10 non-virtues. So
Mhm.
those you don't want to do. Yeah, definitely. But you want to perfect the six perfections, which are, morality is one of them, right? So you have them written down.
I do.
What are the six perfections?
Mm-hmm.
Yasmin knows them.
That's what I
Limitless joy. No.
Yeah, that's one of them.
Generosity.
Yeah.
Patience.
Yeah.
Wisdom.
Wisdom, stillness, patience,
Yeah.
kindness,
Yeah.
giving.
Can we repeat them? Effortless joy,
Giving,
giving,
kindness,
kindness,
patience, self-control,
patience, self-control,
stillness, meditation, and wisdom.
and
Yeah.
wisdom.
So those are the things we want to work on. And so kindness is in there, right? Keeping your morality, keeping your patience. So refrain from getting angry, being generous, just in all sorts of ways, right? So do all of those things, and wisdom will power all of those up. And doing all of those will bring you to understanding wisdom more, so they kind of work both ways, right? And then, bit by bit, that ignorance will be destroyed, Turnjit is saying about these feelings that come up. And, by applying wisdom to him, they say it's like a nuclear bomb. That's how powerful it is to think about karma and emptiness. So if Turnjit can think like, I'm forced to feel like this, and there's nothing I can do about it, but it's because of how I've treated others in the past, then boom, you're just really making so much progress, and you're killing all these seeds of ignorance. So having those thoughts on your mind a lot during the day, of how everything is your movie that you are creating, then things will change rapidly for you. Does that help?
So I have one distinction then. So if we are angry and we can't help but be angry because that's our karmic piece, then how do we get to work on the anger? Let go of the anger? So it's both, right?
Yeah.
It's both the action and the letting go.
So, it is very hard when you're in that moment of anger to.
Well, I'm
But-
just saying that's one of the six perfections,
Yeah.
right? So it just seems that if we can't help it, then
So the more wisdom you have, the less angry you'll eventually get. But if you do get angry, most of the time you can start to feel it coming on. So that's when you want to do all your work. When you're like, okay, I'm getting really annoyed right now, usually it works up until full-blown anger, right? So do all the work you can and try your hardest to stop yourself from doing the big outburst, because you understand that nobody is doing anything to you. You've created that annoying person right there. It's you that you're looking at. It's nothing to do with them. So if you can work on it to stop it. Now sometimes we cannot stop it. But you have to try your darndest to stop it. So if you really cannot stop it, then we do the 4 forces afterwards. We've gone over the 4 forces of countering of purifying, right? So then you are still blasting wisdom to that situation, but then, but we prefer to stop yourself. Like, that's amazing virtue. If you feel like you want to just scream or hurt someone really bad and you stop yourself because you know that that's just going to create more pain. Like, that is one of the hardest things you can ever do, one of the most powerful things you can ever do. They say it's harder than meditating in a cave for 5 years. It's that moment of stopping yourself. So you do your best, right? That's all you can do. If you really cannot help it in that moment, you just try your darndest. And if it doesn't work, then you work on it afterwards. So that's really the path to healing and becoming enlightened. And it's fully possible. Yeah. So we have 5 more minutes. So because Serena said last week we did meditate for a few minutes, so she asked if we can do that again. So we'll dedicate those last few minutes to just do that. So I'm going to stop